All right, hey folks, welcome to episode one of AI Unplugged. It's my podcast. I guess this episode is really a trial. Going to kind of talk through the bigger picture, how this fits into everything that I'm doing, what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, I guess. So first off, a little bit about me. My name is Travis Freisinger. I am a principal engineer at Eighth Light. I've been in the industry for 22 years. I've been writing code for fun for over
Mm.
30. Yeah, I'm in my 40s. Grew up on a dairy farm, so if you can believe that, I managed to milk cows and write code somehow. I have lived and worked on five of the seven continents. Got a global history of doing things. I've been everything from a mainframe operator all the way up to a CTO. I like code. I like making. In pretty much every sense of the word. And I'm an AI adventurer. I think that is the primary role that matters right now. I am a guy on a journey to weave AI into my day-to-day life. So you're riding along as I blend it into my life. Watching the triumphs and the oops moments along the way. Really figuring out how AI, specifically generative AI, can make us better, faster, stronger. That's it. There's a variety of things that fit under that umbrella. And, I think, very lucky in the fact that I live in Boulder, Colorado, and there's a really vibrant AI community here. I happen to know the organizer of two good events, the Rocky Mountain AI Interest Group and the Boulder AI Builders. Both of them I try to mostly regularly attend. Lots of great folks. I have had the opportunity to speak at one, not the other yet, and I got some other things on the go. So I want to kind of just dissect those other things, why this journey might be interesting, and you can decide. The whole plan with this podcast is to create a space for me to kind of I don't know, call it stream of consciousness thinking. I know they should be organized and this and that, and they'll be organized around ideas, but I've got some other things that I'm doing. So I'm exploring AI. Like I said, I'm an AI adventurer, and it started off with kind of a challenge from a colleague, like go become famous. I was like, oh god, okay, whatever. I'll see what I can do. And so I decided live streaming. You can find that under the concept GPT with me. It's all about demonstrating how I integrate AI into my life, how I'm building things hands on, how I'm finding value in it. I think there's a lot of hype out in the space, and I am on a mission to figure out, where is the utility. And being positioned as a software engineer with a pretty deep history, specifically, not in any particular vertical, just of solving hard problems, this felt like the right kind of challenge. So I agreed. Yeah, GPT with me, really about me co-creating. The idea here is that I'm going to build a set of tools that allows me to advance thought leadership. So I'm going to build tools to understand the thing that I want to be a thought leader in, using those tools to kind of streamline and optimize my efforts to become a thought leader. It probably all sounds super complicated, but I hope to kind of walk through my plan in this first episode. So the idea being that I've got the GPT with me, I'm building some tools. The first tool I explored was in the realm of custom GPTs. Yeah, I know there's an OpenAI API and there's lots of things you can do, and I do plug into it. But I just wanted to start small, and that led to this web GPT called WebCat. So if you do an at web space cat, you'll find a custom GPT that you can give it a URL of a web page, and it will pull the contents of that web page in. It'll scrape it into the chat. So now you can bring in more relevant current information. I know ChatGPT can query the web, but it'll summarize. It'll often summarize. It'll often get blocked on things for a variety of reasons. Not to say that what I'm doing here is anything other than an experiment, and how I managed to make that happen. Talking with ChatGPT about how to make this happen, low friction, small bit of code, kind of co-creating. And it's like, hey, why don't you use a text reader, kind of a screen reader library to figure out how to parse this and pull it back? And it worked pretty well. I mean, not everything's fully accessible and there are issues. And There's, a variety of things. It's a very like POC type project. I got it up as a command line, and then I asked it to help me convert that to an Azure function and GitHub Actions, and it was really easy to do. I think I've live streamed most of that, actually, the creation of that. So go check it out. YouTube.com/at GPT with me now. If you go to the main video tab, you'll see some a side experiment where I used generative AI to make a metal album about my cat, Mr. Fluffles, real name Dante. There's 12 songs there, so if you're into cats and metal, check it out. It seems pretty popular. It's got some views. People seem interested in that. But anyway, that's a side tangent to kind of the larger plan here. So it started there, started making a custom GPT, and I was like, oh, cool, this kind of works. Like, it can call functions, and it's figuring it out. And then I started going, okay, cool, Rag's the rage. Let's go explore Rag. So I started creating this other tool called Video Scribe. I think I'm just calling it Scribe now. The idea is that I'm able to take YouTube videos, pull up the transcript, and chat with them. Doesn't sound super interesting, really, right? Like, text to speech has been around for a while. There's a larger ecosphere I'm trying to build. I want to be able to ingest the unstructured data from a transcript, from a video or podcast. And in the case of a video, potentially find keyframes based on what's interesting and kind of have this multimodal unstructured data component. I think unstructured data is really the area we're going to start tapping into. Why? Why do I think that? Because, well, back in my day, when I was starting to do web development as a, preteen, the internet was all text-based. In fact, it was text-based for a good portion of those early years. Early Facebook was text-based. I remember being in college because I switched degrees. Otherwise, I would have been done. Writing code in the lab, working with Facebook, and it's all like right on people's walls and pokes. And most of the web now is went to photos for a while. Instagram had its day. Now it's all video, right? Like a lot of the media I consume is video, and I think there's value in that. Specifically, it started off as a way to kind of help write blog articles. I got a blog, AIBuddy.software, part of my media empire, I guess, for lack of a better term. And so it started off as a tool to do that. How can I pull in some of this thinking? I really like the way they're describing this concept here. I want to kind of noodle on that, interact with it, ideate with it. So, my whole driving force here is that, AI is going to make me better, faster, stronger. It's going to help me ideate, be creative, funny enough, at a quicker clip than I could on my own. So GPT with me live stream, that's kind of part one. Podcast, you're listening to this now. That is part two. So this is kind of a auxiliary to my blog. My blog's very much a space about philosophical and technical discussions. AIBuddy.software, like I said, you'll see me covering things like conversational artifacts. So what are those? Well, I chat with like Claude, and it produces this bit of code that can kind of be run to the side in its own little container, and I can continue to chat with it to refine it. That's an artifact. We had a conversation, and it produced something of value. Not just insight or information in my head, but it's a little bit of code. And I know there's co-pilots and all sorts of other things. Not a huge fan. Honestly, I'm not. It just doesn't work for my workflow the way I'm doing it. I'm often just asking questions, trying to figure things out, maybe ideate, maybe whip up a quick prototype on an idea. So it got to that stage. Gosh, I just lost my train of thought. Yeah, buddy, prototype. Oh yeah, being able to mix and match, create articles, ideate conversational artifacts, and the like. So the blog's there, it's interesting. I put maybe 1 or 2 articles up a month. It was really, outside of the live stream, the first thing I started going after. The live stream was like, hey, cool, I'm going to start poking at this concept of GPTs and integrating GPTs into my life. And then I was like, oh, cool, I've got this domain I just purchased and the intention of writing. Let me go do some writing here with AI. So I'm kind of co-creating this written content. It is just as time consuming as you think. It's nice because it'll create the images, it'll help me refine the content, zero in on things. I'll do the summaries. It does a lot of the lifting for me. I'm still here. I'm still human in the loop. I'm still working with it in a co-pilot type sense, but it's just accelerating the pace at which I can do things. Yeah, so this podcast, like I said, it's just a space to kind of augment that blog, that thinking, that freewheel thinking. Things that don't fit in the live stream. The live stream is really about building and kind of more of the software type focus, the creational, co-creating aspect. Well, this is a space to just explore ideas, that to talk about anything in the AI space. Specifically, I'm driving at a larger a larger philosophy here, and that is I have two books in mind. I'm not an expert by any means, but I'm trying to be. And I find that when I am engaging with a concept like this, it's easy for me to maybe miss pieces or misrepresent things or not fully understand. So like I did with TDD, I made TDDBuddy.com, where I blended a whole lot of thought from like Kent Beck and others, Uncle Bob, into some new and refined thinking. I added some new katas, and really set about ultimately creating a course from that to teach people how to TDD. It is on I think Udemy, if I remember correctly. Let me just look here just for a moment. I'm going to see if I can find it. Yes, it is on Udemy. It's the TDD Fundamentals in C Sharp, presented by, I believe, DevFluence. Yes, DevFluence. So DevFluence is a school professional software development I've co-founded when I worked at an organization in South Africa. The person delivering the course is not me. It is my old right-hand man, Brendan Page. But, I think after 553 students on the platform with a 98 ratings and a 4.8 stars, I must have done something right. I'm sure he's got a lot of charisma and pizzazz, as he always does, in delivering the content. But I look at the outline, and it is literally the manual I wrote, which is fantastic. And I love to see that, out of the 200 or 300 people I trained in my time, well, we're coming up to 1,000. A lot of people are super responsive to this. So clearly, I did something right, and so I'm trying to build on that practice. I'm trying to go, hey, none of us know what AI can and can't do. I mean, we can go look at the math, we can get to the quantum level and understand kind of at that scope of reality what's happening, which is great, but it doesn't really account for the kind of the emergent properties like translation, the ability to coach me. I can give it a talk and ask, how can I improve? And it'll give me some, add a story about this here, or dig into this there. And it really does often enrich. You can't go for everything. That's like a human being, and you can't trust everyone's advice. But it really does enrich the experience. I am now being more of a manager, a supervisor, than I am being the full-on creator doing the work. And I think that's the value in AI that we're starting to wrangle with. All right. So, that's the book. I've got two books, and I think I want to dive just a little bit more into what those two books are. So, given my background as both a doer and a manager, I wanted to cover those two perspectives. What is it like to work with generative AI as an engineer? What are the things I need to know? And what is it like to work with generative AI as a manager? What are the things what are the risks? How am I going to realize ROI? How do I manage change around this? It's a new material. I keep saying it's a new material. It's not just a new DB we plug in. It's going to change the way we write software. It's going to change the way we think about software. So the first one is the AI Engineer's Handbook. This is very much focused on the engineer. What are the foundations of generative AI? Excuse me. Conversational interfaces. What does it mean to have chat with chat plus tools plus humans to make workflows that people call agents? How does this prompt or the dialogue kind of change the way we interact with this? How is it structured? What's its role? What are the common techniques? Do I version it? How do I version it? How do I test these things? What are evals? Oh, they're kind of a test, and what do they do? Unpacking some of that. And then as soon as we mention RAG, people are going to be like, oh, vector DB. I'm not so sold. I honestly am not. I haven't poked at this a ton. I could definitely think there's use cases. I'm still on some of the full text search wagon, but we'll get into it. We'll discuss. We'll look at techniques of dealing with that. And then chapter 4 is about building rag systems, kind of the basic practicalities of getting going. Integrating conversational interfaces. This is where you start getting into the nitty gritty of, real time evals, so observability, your prompt management. What does it go into actually running one of these systems? And then I want to, then I elevate up to, okay, what if we start looking at more workflowy type things and there's some tools in the mix and how does that change? Start to discuss agentic software. Now, I think everyone in the industry has high hopes for this, but the reality is I've seen a few things out there. I would say at the proof of concept stage, even if it is a startup claiming they're going to launch in a few months. These things seem like there's a lot of work to keep them running. I would definitely at this stage say, it's an idea to explore. Maybe there's some use cases I haven't uncovered out there, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's agentic software is going to change the way we do work overnight. I think it's going to be a matter of learning to work with it. After that, some more best practices. How do you debug quickly? Modularity, designing for latency. How do you deal with multiple complex components? I think simple rag system, data engineering is your biggest thing. What happens when you get layers of prompts? We unpack observability and monitoring a little bit. How do you use evals? What's this idea of eval-driven development that could potentially complement TDD in this space? How do you deal with them in CI? How do you continuously monitor? If you're dealing with embeddings in vector DBs, how do you do your retrieval observability to know, if it's not working, why isn't it working? What data came back with that query? What was the context that was injected? And just try to showcase some scenarios in which this is happening, or very least some tools to help you get there. Data management, the structured and unstructured data. Structured should be easy, data pipeline, spin it up, tool or hand code. I think that's a pretty solved problem, honestly. Unstructured is far more interesting. I see a lot of startups in this space. I have parsed too many PDFs in my day or Excel documents to even want to go and poke at that. Sticking very much to video and audio as the unstructured data that I'm experimenting with because it's got tangible value to me. My scribe tool gets used every day as a command line tool. I think today I use it 5 or 6 times already, and it's 2:30 in the afternoon. Lots of times I want to pull things in, I want to summarize, I want to be able to ingest that content in a non-real-time way. That's really the value I find right now. I've got bigger pictures, got to tune in the GPT with me to kind of see how that evolves. Techniques for data retrieval, embedding, semantics, okay, we talked a little bit about vector DBs, but how, let's dig into this data management concept, pipelines, safety and ethics, experimentation and continuous improvement. How do you experiment with your prompts to keep moving forward? How do you test your evals? How do you deploy? How do you monitor? Tying this together in kind of a more concise type loop. By the way, I don't believe prompts belong in engineers' hands. I think they can utilize them, but I believe that's very much a product or design, probably more product type ownership there. And what tools are there? Models, how do you manage them? Build versus buy versus borrow, Hugging Face. Fine tuning versus rag, life cycles and upgrades. Really, how do you build with it? How do you operate this thing? Operational considerations, latency, availability, cost management, and then maybe poking at a few case studies. I'm building some partnerships with people in the industry in the Boulder area, and they've got some pretty interesting clients. So I think there's a wealth of information there. The goal is to just kind of lay things out. I mean, this is still very much a summary level, but I just want to help folks navigate the journey I've been on. Like with TDD Buddy, the feel is a buddy feel. Someone who's been there, someone who can help guide the way, someone who can just help break that friction and get going. I'm not going to dig deep and claim to be an expert on every one of these things. I'm going to claim to be the guy that knows how to solve hard problems well enough to hand it over to the real engineers to do the work. That's the one book. And the other book, I think, just for completeness sake, and this is the one that kind of started it all. There was one, and then it broke into two. This is about AI product engineering, integrating AI into software. How does product design and engineering come together? to make this happen. It has to be holistic and interdisciplinary, I think, for us to be successful in our attempts to integrate generative AI. I cover the same thing. It's a whole new thing. I talk a little bit about seamless high trust experiences, what conversational interfaces are, their types, kind of how you would, some high level, like what they're doing, what you're trying to achieve. Remember, this is more of a management focus. This isn't a doer focus. And then I go into better, faster, stronger, and safer too. So making decisions, how are you making decisions around delegating to the software within the product? That's what you're doing. Within process, how do you embrace imperfection? How do you deal with the probabilistic versus deterministic aspect in the system and latency? Like those are your two biggest challenges. I'll tell you right now. And all through that, finding what to ship, the art of trade-offs. How do you balance innovation with usability and feasibility? How do you slice enough to get reasonable feedback to know that there's value in the feature, but enough room to make improvement and iterate? Which leads us on to how do you manage risk? How do you manage cost? How do you manage change? How do you look for a return on an investment here? And I'm focusing specifically on two areas that aren't directly tied to money numbers right away: productivity and user experience, because I want design to have a proper seat at the table here. I don't think we're going to be successful with generative AI without really leaning into the design principles, human-centered design. And productivity, if I'm not gaining some kind of productivity enhancement here, I'm probably wasting, right? Like, why am I putting the money there? And then, excuse me, a simple look to the future. This idea of sentient design and intelligent interactions, and what's going to come of this. The conversational artifact piece I dropped at the beginning is kind of my first few steps into that space, and what's it like, and why I made a metal album. What's it like to co-create? Where are the frustrations? Where are the things I wish I had more depth on? I've got some experience in music. I'm classically trained pianist. I did marching band. Like, I've done a bit of composition. Never done production, but, I get it. I've had friends, I've had studios, I've sat in, I've seen, I understand the labor that's involved. So the goal here is to reduce the amount of labor required, but still yield valuable output, right? That's a hard thing to do. That's a hard thing to, I think, adequately have a conversation around without being grounded. So that's what I'm trying to do: ground folks in the realities of what it is to operate and build with generative AI. Ultimately, that's the goal. And then I will use these podcasts. I will process them for the tools I built in ChatGPT with me, continuing to refine them for purpose as I both, use my voice to ideate and use AI and its subsequent tooling that I'm making to help further kind of refine those concepts. Anyway, I hope it's an interesting experience. I think at the very least, there's at least a story to be told about my attempts to co-create with AI and what ends up being. I see a pretty good line on it. Seems interesting. I'm finding value in making small little utility things and kind of trying to push those forward, all in the name of helping people be better, faster, and stronger. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this first episode of AI Unplugged. As I outline my journey to both experiment with generative AI and build thought leadership and expertise in this space. I hope you all had a good time, and thanks for listening.